Assalamu alaikum and a good day to you all. This is your host Abdul Qadir with another video, the 31st in our Science and History series. In this episode, we'll conclude our discussion on the topic of food, which we started in our previous episode. This is the last part, the part 2. Food. How life spends energy. From food to living energy. In the previous episode, the part 1 of food, we discovered one of nature's greatest achievements. Plants captured sunlight, combined it with water and carbon dioxide, and transformed that energy into the food that sustains almost every form of life on Earth. In short, the previous episode was about how food is constructed. That was half the story. A loaf of bread cannot make your muscles move, an apple cannot make your heart beat, rice cannot produce a single thought. Food contains enormous amounts of stored energy, yet by itself it can do none of those things. Before food can become movement, warmth, growth, or thought, it must undergo another extraordinary transformation. And that transformation is taking place inside you right now. Every second of every day, trillions of tiny chemical reactions are quietly converting food into the energy that keeps you alive and kicking. This is the hidden story behind every heartbeat, every blink, every breath, and every thought you have ever had. Therefore, in this episode, part 2 of food, we will discover how food is utilized. When we eat, we often think we are feeding ourselves, but in reality, we are feeding the trillions of living cells that make up our bodies. Your body is not one single living thing, it is a community of trillions of living cells, each carrying out its own work, yet they all work together as one. Your muscles are built from cells, your skin is built from cells, your liver, your lungs, your eyes, and even your brain are all made of cells. Each one is alive, each one is constantly working. Some are building new molecules, some are repairing damaged tissues, some are sending electrical signals through your nervous system. Others are fighting infections or replacing worn out cells. Together they perform the countless tasks that keep your body alive. But none of them can eat a sandwich. None of them can bite into an apple. Food is simply too large and too complex. Before it can be used, it must first be taken apart. This is the purpose of digestion. Digestion is much more than chewing and swallowing. It is a carefully coordinated process that breaks large food molecules into much smaller ones that cells can actually use. Starches are broken down into simple sugars, such as glucose. Proteins are broken down into amino acids. Fats are broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. These smaller molecules pass through the walls of the intestine into the bloodstream. The blood then carries them throughout the body, delivering them to the trillions of waiting cells. At this point, the journey that began with sunlight has reached every corner of your body. Yet, even now, the cells cannot use this energy directly. Before energy in food can power life, it must undergo a most remarkable transformation. And that transformation depends on one of the smallest, yet most important molecules in the history of life. The cells have received the nutrients they needed. Glucose has arrived, so have amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, and water. Yet the cell still faces a challenge. Food contains far more energy than most cellular activities require at any moment. A muscle cell does not need the energy from an entire meal just to contract once. A brain cell does not need the energy from a whole slice of bread to send a single nerve signal. Life doesn't simply need energy, it needs the right amount in the right place at the right time. Nature's solution is one of the most remarkable molecules ever discovered. It is called ATP, short for adenosine triphosphate. Every known form of life, from bacteria to fungi to towering trees and human beings, depends on the same tiny molecule. At first, that may seem surprising. Life appears astonishingly diverse. Yet beneath that diversity lies a remarkable unity. ATP is often called the energy currency of life. But what does that actually mean? Think of food as money safely stored in a bank. It may represent great wealth, but you cannot easily spend it one tiny purchase at a time. ATP is like the money in your wallet. It carries only a small amount of energy, but that energy is immediately available, exactly where it is needed, exactly when it is needed. ATP itself is an extraordinarily small molecule. It consists of two main parts, a molecule called adenosine and a chain of three phosphate groups. The third phosphate is special. When a cell needs energy, that final phosphate group is released. In the process, a small amount of energy becomes available. Not enough to power your whole body, but enough to make a muscle fiber contract, help build a protein, move substances across the cell membrane, transmit a nerve impulse, or carry out one of the countless tiny jobs that keep life running. Upon release of the phosphate group, ATP becomes a slightly different molecule called ADP, adenosine diphosphate. Moments later, the cell attaches another phosphate group to ADP. The molecule becomes ATP once again, charged, ready, waiting for its next task. Like a rechargeable battery, ATP is continually discharged, recharged, used again, and recharged again. This endless cycle repeats every second inside every living cell. ATP is like a rechargeable battery, but every battery must be charged. So where does that energy comes from? The answer is food. Earlier, we saw that digestion breaks food into smaller molecules, including glucose. Glucose still contains much of the energy that plants originally captured from sunlight, but that energy cannot simply be poured into ATP. It must first be released carefully, gradually, and under precise control. This takes place inside tiny structures found in almost every cell. They are called mitochondria. Often described as the powerhouses of the cell, mitochondria are better thought of as the cell's power stations. Their job is to transfer the energy stored in glucose into ATP. To do, to do this, they need one more essential ingredient, oxygen. Inside the mitochondria, glucose reacts with oxygen through a long series of carefully controlled chemical reactions. Rather than all at once, as happens when wood burns in a fire, the energy stored within glucose is released gradually. Each step captures a little of that energy and uses it to recharge ATP from ADP. This controlled release, a remarkable process called cellular respiration, is one of nature's greatest achievements. It is the process by which cells use oxygen to release the energy stored in food and capture it in ATP. If all the energy in glucose were released at once, most of it would simply be lost as heat. Instead, cells capture much of it in thousands of tiny pockets of ATP, packets of ATP, ready to power life whenever and wherever it is needed. This process also produces two familiar substances, carbon dioxide, which we breathe out, and water. In a beautiful symmetry, these are the very same raw materials that plants use during photosynthesis to make glucose in the first place. Together, photosynthesis and cellular respiration complete one of nature's greatest cycles. Plants use sunlight to build glucose from carbon dioxide and water. Animals and plants themselves use oxygen to release that stored energy, again producing carbon dioxide and water. The atoms have returned. Matter is cyclical. The energy, however, flows onward, entering life through sunlight, passing from one organism to another, and eventually leaving as heat. Once ATP has been charged, the real work begins. Every time a muscle contracts, ATP provides the energy. Every heartbeat, every breath, every blink of an eye depends on it. When your brain listens to these words, forms a memory, or imagines a distant galaxy, billions of ATP molecules are at work. When a cut heals, when your immune system destroys invading bacteria, when a child grows taller, or when a seed begins to sprout, ATP quietly powers every step. Plants depend on ATP just as much as animals do. They use it to build new tissues, transport nutrients, repair damaged cells, produce flowers, fruits, and seeds. Life never truly stops. Even while you sleep, your heart continues beating, your lungs continue breathing, your cells continue repairing themselves. Throughout all of this, countless ATP molecules are continuously being used, recharged, and used again, day and night, from birth until the end of life. The story of energy does not end when it has done its work, it simply changes form and continues its journey. This is because energy can neither be created nor destroyed, it can only be transformed. Long before you were born, some of the energy now flowing through your body began its journey deep within the sun. Plants captured a tiny fraction of that sunlight. Through photosynthesis, they stored it inside molecules of food. You ate that food, your cells released its stored energy and transferred it into ATP. At every stage, the energy changed its form, but the journey never stopped. At this very moment, the same ancient energy is helping your heart beat, your lungs breathe, and your brain think. Tomorrow, some of it will warm your body, some will leave as heat, some will become movement, some will help build new cells. The energy continues its journey just as it has for billions of years. Perhaps that is one of nature's greatest wonders. The energy that powers your thoughts today once traveled across 150 million kilometers through space as sunlight. Life appears endlessly diverse, yet beneath that diversity, the same ancient journey continues. From sunlight to food to ATP and into every living cell. A journey that has been unfolding for billions of years and one that continues inside you even today. This concludes this episode as well as the topic of food. Please provide your feedback on the covering of this topic. I'm really excited to hear from you. And also, please subscribe to the channel if not already. And in the end, as always, thanks for watching. Stay curious and Allah Hafiz.